The energy just got a lot slower, heavier, and more serious. That's Saturn forcing us to finish out old stories before any new ones can begin. And in the short term, this is being activated by the solar eclipse on September 21st. You can see that it's tightly opposing Saturn. This could be some old issue getting dusted off to be readdressed once more. Whether that's internal or external, it's going to have that feeling of an almost fated moment of release, accelerating a necessary ending to something, even if it's just like a behavior or a set of beliefs in your life, so that a new beginning can finally happen. With Pisces, the main shadow is this feeling of helplessness. So the primary pattern being released by this is this sense of eternal victimhood, habit of waiting to be rescued or feeling like you have absolutely no control over your own life. Of course, we have all been made into victims in some way or another, but life is simply not enjoyable when that's the only mindset that you inhabit. You can check the Virgo house in your chart to see where this might show up in your life, and with Virgo in general, it's just these more practical routine areas often. Bad health habits, maybe draining jobs, or just unworkable routines are going to be exposed. It's going to feel like a relief to let them go. Of course, for some, it will go much deeper than this. Now, with this being in the South Node in Virgo, we're being told that we have to release control. We're going to be confronted that. We're going to be finding ways to be less rigid. A lot of us will have these faded moments where we have to let go of the anxiety of perfectionism, of the debilitating belief that we have to get everything right before we're allowed to move forward. Thankfully, we do have a sort of emotional grace period before then, because the September 7th eclipse this weekend is just a whole lot nicer. This is your chance to lean into the deep emotional intelligence of Pisces. You can front-run the disasters of the next eclipse by gaining your clarity now, getting ahead and beginning the release, even if it's only emotional. So as we make our way into October after eclipse season, we will have seen what's unsustainable. That's when Mars enters Scorpio. Our fire and our will return, our sense of agency returns, partly because we've been through this release. Now for Aries rising, this transit is a foundational and deeply personal reckoning with the self. Saturn transits tend to bring undeniable clarity. Now the retrograde begins in your first house of identity, appearance, of your will, of like how you're going to do things, how you initiate things. Now this is a sacred recalibration of who you are, of how you project yourself into the world. Now we sort of had a first start already, maybe a preview period, but now this time is like a review of that new chapter you began last May when Saturn first entered your sign. Now you could be questioning whether your recent actions and initiatives are truly aligned with your core being, like is this actually what I should be doing? Now at first that could be kind of difficult, maybe throw you into disarray, but it's only because you have to accept the full responsibility for the person you are becoming. And you have to release any roles or masks that diminish your vitality. I mean, you're Aries, dude. Like, no one can stand in your way. Now, because this is sort of retreating back into your 12th house, has a lot to do with mental health, the subconscious, with endings, self-undoing, sometimes hidden enemies. I know, Aries can sometimes get into fights. Now, this is from September until February. Now, this is a profound call to go inward. This phase will bring hidden anxieties, subconscious patterns to the surface. It's demanding that you confront the many ways that you may sabotage your own efforts. That means this is a crucial period for spiritual discipline, conscious rest, and healing old karmic wounds. I mean, this could be some stale beef that you're just ready to let go. Now, the Virgo solar eclipse in September will powerfully activate your 6th house of health, work, daily routines. This could trigger a crisis, might force you to address how your 12th house patterns, your mental health, might be impacting your physical well-being, your daily functioning. But all this activation and this need for release means this is your opportunity to release debilitating habits, to release those debilitating beliefs, those mental routines. If only you could see them right now as the change they really are and realize just how much power you have in letting them go. This is all meant to just make it easier for you to build new structures that honor your body, your soul, your health. For Taurus rising, this retrograde initiates a period of deep behind-the-scenes work that will ultimately redefine your place in the world. The journey begins with Saturn retrograde in your 12th house, prompting a review of your spiritual beliefs, your hidden patterns, this sort of like mental health things going on, and also shows you where you may self-sabotage yourself. Now, this is a time to go into a cocoon, actually, to confront your shadows, do that shadow work, release fears, release emotions without judgment, to operate just below the level of conscious awareness, secretly pulling the strings on all of your behaviors. It is a call for energetic mastery of yourself, of your emotions and a more intentional connection with the sacred things in your life, with what you truly find important. Now, as Saturn moves back into your 11th house until February, of friendships, community, of future aspirations and hopes, the focus shifts to like this practical restructuring of your social world. You could be forced to get brutally honest about like your alliances, who you're friends with, and long-term dreams, like what do you actually hope for from the future. This is a time of review, and choose quality over quantity here with Saturn. He always favors depth and release connections, because this is the culling god, the god with the, the scythe, the grim reaper. Release connections that are unhealthy or misaligned with your values. Otherwise, they will pull you down and limit you and shackle you. Now, the Virgo solar eclipse in your 5th house, that's of creativity, romance, children. This will create some tension for you, unfortunately. It may bring a culmination or crisis in a creative project, maybe like some romantic affairs. It is going to demand that you release perfectionistic tendencies and even fears of being like seen, to be judged, because you have to embrace authentic joy and self-expression. You have to radiate, because that's how you pull things in, Taurus. You are deeply magnetic. Now, the work you do on your 11th house in the community, those community structures, is meant to support this more courageous, creative unfolding as you begin to just feel more comfortable expressing yourself after this. For Gemini rising, the Saturn retrograde right now until February is a critical review of your ambitions, your hopes, and also just your public life, your reputation. Now, the transit starts in your 11th house. It's asking you to reevaluate your long-term hopes, dreams, what you really aspire to, and also your friends, your alliances, the community that you belong to. Are your future goals really your own? Or are they driven by these external expectations, this peer pressure, it's actually stemming from like a feeling of competition or even fear? Now, this phase is about ensuring that the future you are building is an authentic expression of your soul's purpose. Now, the shift back into your 10th house of career, of reputation, of public recognition, even legacy, this brings review to a very visible and tangible climax. This is a time of restructuring your professional life, taking responsibility for the legacy that you're going to leave behind. Like, what do you actually want to accomplish in this life? What is your life's work? You even may feel pressure from authority figures in this time. That's another way this could show up, or a sense that like, certain professional rewards that you may be due are delayed, and that is going to test your patience. This final pass will allow you to leave a definitive mark in your career or like your public life, whatever that is. Now, the Virgo solar eclipse in your 4th house, that's like home, family, even your emotional foundation, is the roots of the chart and of you. That is a powerful opposition. That could show like a crisis, even culminating some type of like tensions in the home environment, or even just like something that's bubbling up like within the very roots of yourself. Now, this may force you to make hard decisions too about your career path. Like, maybe you're really not handling the tension, the balance between home and career properly, between personal, introspective you time and your time outside. This is a time for letting go of that emotional baggage, also letting go of like family patterns, toxic memories even, that may have been holding you back, so you can build a public life that is supported by a solid, authentic inner foundation. And it is rough for us if even Gemini can't be authentic, so we need you to do this. Now, for Cancer rising, this retrograde is calling for a profound reevaluation of your life's direction, of your belief systems, of this sort of like big picture view of what's going on. Now, it begins in your 10th house of career, public recognition, even your legacy. And that's going to prompt you to like reflect on your path in the world. What are you leaving behind? What will be said of your life? That makes this an excellent period for your career. But Saturn is moving backwards, right? This demands that your goals, responsibilities resonate with your soul's calling, your actual internal beliefs. It is simply not satisfying enough for you to have the hollow external shell. It has to ring true from within. So this is more than just external success. This is everything, and that's what you're supposed to do. You're on the right path there. Now, this could also show you like stepping into a leadership role in some way or another, and this retrograde is ensuring that you're prepared for it. Now, until February, Saturn's actually in your 9th house of higher learning, of travel, of the big picture. It's like your philosophy of life itself, your worldview. Now, this is a time to challenge constricted beliefs, expand your perspectives. You should challenge rigid thinking in yourself, and you should really lean into just being open to other different ways of viewing the world, of viewing life itself. And it's Saturn, you're going to be questioning some of that. Some of it isn't going to make sense, and that's okay. It's going to reaffirm your faith in what you do believe. The important thing is to engage like a healthy, not necessarily questioning, but maybe questing perspective here. You're reimagining your relationship with wisdom and faith itself, and that's going to allow for something new and beautiful to unfold within you. Now, this coming Virgo solar eclipse at September 21st is in your third house of communication, learning, your immediate environment, siblings, neighborhood, your daily drive. It has to do with cars too. The third house is big, actually. It's really just sort of like the small picture, maybe the details of life. Now, there could be a crisis with one of these topics or a difficult conversation where you may be like revealing your broader beliefs or even just realizing something you believe that you didn't necessarily like acknowledge, Maybe it could be a limiting belief, something like that. Maybe a belief will be exposed that doesn't align with like your actual goals, with what you actually want to do. Or on the flip side, maybe you'll see that your daily thoughts, your actions, like how you actually operate in this world is not aligned with your real inner beliefs, with what you actually believe in and think is worthy. Now, that will give this sort of like faded feeling, maybe even like a karmic like development of the soul feeling where truths are being revealed to you. But it's all going to lead to a greater sense of maturity and clarity, and ultimately greater joy as you release these things that are in your way. Now, for Leo risings, this retrograde starts in your 9th house, inviting you to widen your perspectives and challenge any worldviews that become too rigid or dogmatic. You are questioning yourself and like your actual like big picture belief systems here. Saturn in the 9th here is a pause to reconnect with a more expansive, maybe authentic faith, preparing you for deeper inner work, maturing you, making you someone who can really teach others, even if it's just leading by example. Now, of course, we're actually retreating into the 8th house of Pisces. Now, that's where shared resources, debts, but also intimacy, psychological transformation is. It's an interesting and mysterious place. Now, this is where you're at from September into February, and this is where the most intense work is occurring. This phase draws you into matters of trust, of duty, of also vulnerability, even like shadow work, which means clearing outdated emotional, even financial patterns, especially with the 8th. And you will be seeing old issues related to partnerships or joint resources, even just like group projects coming up again. And they're coming up for healing, for release, for acknowledgement. With Saturn here, finding a wiser way to deal with these things is going to actually free you of a burden moving forward. Or it could be part of the process of becoming someone like wise enough, mature enough, someone who's been through enough to be a teacher, like the way the Saturn, Aries story is going to turn you into. Now, the Virgo solar eclipse in your 2nd house of personal finances, values, even self-worth, sometimes hopes, that's a powerful opposition. That shows like a financial shakeup, even a crisis of self-worth, forcing you to really confront those 8th house fears, around vulnerability, around not being dependent or maybe being too dependent. It's also going to bring up control issues. So that makes this a critical moment to limit your spending, get clear on your budget, get clear on like energy leaks in your relationships. Like, are you doing too much or are you doing too little? Either way, the focus is on building a lifestyle that does reflect a new, more mature sense of your own value. I think leaning into that 2nd house thing, that lifestyle, like how you actually spend your energy every day is, the changes made here are really going to help clear out whatever's been blocking you in this 8th house retrograde story. And I think that's a big part of what turns you into this teacher starting in February when Saturn moves into your 9th house in Aries. Now, for Virgo rising, this retrograde is a deep dive into the nature of your relationships, both with others and with yourself. Now, it begins in the 8th house, the place of duty, of shared resources, group projects, debts, also intimacy, both with yourself and others. We have psychological transformation things happening here. A lot of therapists have 8th house placements. Now, this is demanding an honest conversation with your capacity for inner trust, for transformation, for surrender, with what is your duty to yourself. I think Virgos spend a lot of time thinking about their duty to others, but what about to yourself? It can be a mysterious place, but overall you are just reviewing the deep psychological contracts and beliefs that underpin your life. You could be questioning them, and this is a good thing. Some things do need to be changed, to be transformed. Other things are going to pass the test. But until February, Saturn is really focusing on your 7th house of one-on-one partnerships. Now, this review becomes like explicitly relational here. And this is an intense phase where your patience in relationships could could really be tested, I'm sorry to say. You are called to review the agreements, the commitments in your closest bonds. You have to ensure that things are clear, balanced, and they honor you, and that you're not being taken advantage of here. But more than that, at times you may just be called to show a little more patience in relationships in general, even in a way that could feel like somewhat unfair. And that's part of Saturn just maturing you in this way as someone who really knows how to deal with this thing. Now, the relief here is that it's temporary, okay? It's temporary. You could be a little more irritable right now, especially when dealing with group projects, shared resources and finances. It could just really seem like these things are just in your way, obstructing your path. This will clear up by February. It's just a temporary thing. Now, the Virgo solar eclipse in your first house of yourself, of your identity, this is a profound personal reset. And this whole 18-month period of Virgo eclipses is a personal reset. This brings tension in your identity to a culmination, forcing you to see how your relationship patterns are a reflection of your own inner state, and that could be frustrating at times. Now, because that's rough work, this is a time for self-care, okay? You really got to take care of yourself, and that comes first. That's going to make this enlightenment that you're going through here actually possible. You're going to be really urged by life itself over and over again to release these patterns of self-criticism, maybe perfectionism. Step into a version of yourself that is much more authentic, confident, flexible. These eclipses are going on for 18 months here, so, it's an ongoing thing, an ongoing process. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. That sense of authentic power that you'll have coming out of this will be well worth it, I promise you. Now, for Libra rising, this transit is about rebalancing your relationships, restructuring your daily life. The retrograde begins in your 7th house. It's going to bring immediate awareness to relational patterns. That also could be open enemies sometimes, but you're Libra. It's going to be more about the relationships in general. It's a time to assess the health of your partnerships. Identify where you may be giving too much of yourself away. And then we can finally begin this process of reclaiming your own authority within your connections. And that's all tied into the shift back into your 6th house, where the daily work is, where health and routines are. So until February, this relational review is sort of grounded in that practical sphere of the 6th house. And the focus turns to tending to your own well-being, You really got to focus on your health. You're called to restore these supportive rituals for your physical health, for your mental health, for your spiritual health itself. And that's going to be part of restoring your authority within relationships. This is recognizing that healthy relationships are built on a foundation of personal wholeness. Now, that Virgo solar eclipse is in your 12th house. That's where the mental health kind of side of things are. It's also subconscious, sometimes self-undoing. It can also show spiritual matters if you're inclined. And it is going to bring this moment of surrender, of release for you. So expect some hidden fears, unresolved emotions to come to the surface for you to deal with. You're going to be forced to let go of something that you've been clinging to. Being in the 12th, whatever it's being activated here could be a self-sabotaging pattern. Releasing it could be really powerful for you. And with this eclipse being in Virgo, it's you're being asked to release the need to control all the outcomes. You can find healing in silence and introspection, which in turn allows you to build much healthier daily habits and much more balanced relationships. It's going to really help you have more healthier, happier relationships, the kind that you want. But first, we have to tend to yourself and your habits. Now, for Scorpio rising, this retrograde is a call to align your daily efforts with something more creative and expressive inside you. Now, the journey starts with Saturn retrograde in your 6th house. That's drawing your attention to daily responsibilities, health also, work, routines. It really makes it a time to seek a healthier balance between how much effort you're putting into certain areas of life and how much time you have to just be at ease. You may have to address some patterns of overwork, or ways that you've neglected your health itself. And until February, your 5th house of creativity, of romance, even children, is also brought into here. It's a place where you really express yourself. And that could really bring the shift to being more focused on joy itself, on playing, on just the pleasurable side of life. Now, this phase asks you to revisit your creative spark, Scorpio. Reflect on how you share your unique gifts, your unique soul and its way that it expresses itself with the world. Stories that you have in your mind, fears, beliefs that have dimmed your life that prevented you from getting on the stage, and so to speak. This is a time for healing those. Now, the Virgo solar eclipse in your 11th house of friendships, of community, of hopes for the future, that is going to create point of tension there in your social life. I don't know, maybe there's like a necessary friend breakup or like a fight within a social group, you know, or maybe like a project finally culminates, forcing you to see where your social circle either supports or stifles your career, your creative expression. So I think this time period in September, that's September 21st, like around this period, that's when you can release some certain social obligations that can just be shown the door at this point, because they may be only draining you. And moving forward, you can really build alliances that truly celebrate your authentic, creative, powerful self. For Sagittarius rising, this is connecting your 5th and your 4th house. Now for some, this is about grounding your creative expression in like a solid emotional foundation. For others, this is about like, I need more joy in my life, in my like home, in my everyday environment. So at first with Saturn and Aries, you may be revisiting your like creative passions, or, you know, also old flames. We also see dating in the 5th house, you know, and really just seeing how you put yourself out there in the world. Now that makes it a time to release fears of being seen. You know, you want to be visible. And also you can ensure that your romantic and creative life is built on a foundation of self-worth, not a need for external validation. Now moving forward until February, there's like this retreat into the roots of your chart where your home, your family, your everyday life is. Or really more than everyday life, it's like the private part of you, your innermost world. Now the focus turns to your foundations themselves, you know, your sense of belonging. Of course, family is brought into it as well. And really your psychological security is what's being questioned here. So for you, Saturn's retrograde is not really like a storm, you know, it is in the private parts of your life. It's this quiet teaching moment, bringing steadiness to the foundations, the roots of your chart. So you could be questioning, you know, like what upholds my life itself, and that can be a little disorienting at first, but it's temporary, and you're gonna find the answer. And Saturn has this defining quality, so finding the answer like defines that for you, defines those roots for you. That hardens into stone, into a foundation that you can stand on and build from. And you'll be building on what you truly want, on something true and authentic, and that's a lot better than just moving forward on something fake that's just gonna crumble. Now the Virgo solar eclipse in your 10th house, you know, your career, your public reputation, your legacy, that's a major culmination for you. So like a career decision is really going down here, or, you know, maybe something, you know, to do with like your authority figures as well. Something could be finalized here. Either way, you're forced to realize how you're like, your career, your public life has to be supported by a secure, a stable home base, you know, bringing that foundation back into it. So as you question and release, you know, fear-based, inauthentic ways of like thinking in the like deep emotional parts of yourself, you're then going to be able to make career decisions, you know, decisions about your public life and the legacy you want to leave. They're really going to just feel so much more empowering. They're going to actually feel more like expressions of yourself. This is how you fulfill that desire of leaving a mark on the world, Sagittarius, with courage and integrity, both hallmarks of your sign. For Capricorn rising, this retrograde is focused on restructuring your foundations, both physical in the 4th house, emotional, but also mental with that 3rd house. So of course it begins in the 4th house. That's going to prompt this like reflection, you know, this kind of deep questioning period about your home, family patterns, about what it takes for you to feel like you belong, for you to feel safe. So you could also just be having like increased family responsibilities. Maybe that's what the Saturn in Aries is about. Now, this retrograde is a chance to restructure these dynamics with compassion, you know, lay out some clear boundaries, ensure your home is a true sanctuary of support, because that's what you deserve. And if you're not getting that, I mean, you have to get your needs met, Cap. There's no other way. Otherwise you will crumble. But, you know, this is a time period for realizing that, and as long as you just think that you can ignore your needs, well, that's how long it's going to be really difficult. Now, until February, this is all grounded in the 3rd house of like communication, of siblings, you know, your day-to-day life, also like your mindset, sort of like the details of life. And also, you know, the 3rd house is really about communication, about like verbal communication. So I think you could be seeing your inner dialogue really on focus here. Now, this is a critical time to repattern your thoughts and the stories that you tell yourself, to realize how they ensure certain outcomes, sometimes ones you don't want. Instead, you can make sure that they're nourishing, that they're constructive. Now, there is also that Virgo solar eclipse in your ninth house. That's where belief systems are, foreign travel, higher education, the big picture as well. It's a powerful opposition. That means there's going to be like an important decision around travel or education. For others, it could be like a belief crisis, a faith crisis. It's like your big picture worldview itself is being challenged. And that does fall out with your everyday mindset, with like how you go through each day. You're going to have to kind of sort this stuff out. But hey, this Virgo eclipse thing is going on for like 18 more months. Saturn is doing this Pisces stuff until February. You don't have to get it right away. Overall, you're being pushed to release limiting beliefs, so you can align your daily thoughts, your daily habits, and actions with that more expansive, authentic, personal philosophy. And this is all about building that authority within yourself that's going to translate into your authority in life. Now, for my fellow Aquarius risings, this transit is a fundamental review of your resources and your values. So, of course, it begins in your third house, and that's really all about communication, about your day-to-day life, sometimes siblings, sometimes cars. It's a pretty big place, but one thing we know for sure about it is like the small picture, like verbal communication type of thinking. You're really going to be focusing on like your thought patterns, like the narratives that run inside your head that instruct how you think. They may be limiting yourself, limiting the truth. So like the ways that you talk, they're being called into question. You got to find a more tactful, straightforward way to express yourself. Sometimes finding like a way to like sum it up. That's something I struggle with. I got to find brevity with my words. I mean, look how long this video is. It's just part about becoming a better communicator. How else are we going to convince people of our, superior Aquarian ideas and perspective, right? Anyways, until February, there is this retreat back into your second house of finances, self-worth, personal values, sometimes hopes. That really is like bringing this review into it's almost the material plane. It's more like energetic. Like money sometimes is like an energy, right? This is a time for you as a Saturn ruled sign to fix those old financial mistakes, those old financial patterns. Like find the energy leaks. Find them within your self-worth as well. You got to strengthen your inner security. This is such a powerful time for us really cementing our self-worth. And you could really see how you may be subconsciously telling yourself that you're not worthy. And in this time period until February, that's going to really be brought to the surface for you to release these patterns. Now, the Virgo solar eclipse, that's in our 8th house. That's joint finances, debts, duty, also sometimes intimacy and like psychological transformation. It's a mysterious place. We are going to have a powerful culmination here in our it's also group projects, shared resources primarily. We're going to have to clarify shared goals, sometimes financial. Either way, this is all tied into like your sense of personal security and how much you're worth. Releasing certain financial entanglements, energetic entanglements, certain like patterns of insecurity, that these all undermine your self-worth. This is a really powerful time. Just let that go. It's an emotional thing. It's not a thinking thing. And it's a patient thing. Sometimes it's not efficient. But letting it go, that's how you get this financial security. That's how we grow from here. And this is the time period for this deep emotional healing and clearing out. Now, for Pisces rising, this retrograde is a profound journey of self-reclamation and personal restructuring. It begins in your second house, and that's going to highlight themes of self-worth and finances, resource management as well. The phase asks you to honestly address any tendencies to like undervalue yourself or your gifts. It could bring up like themes of insecurity, of scarcity mindsets. Sort of like a budget review, a time to review your finances, even your values. Ensure they support the person you're becoming. Now, until February, Saturn is actually retrograding through your first house, through Pisces again. That's your identity, yourself. This could feel like a rerun of the lessons of the past few years since March 2023. And maybe it's a final opportunity to integrate the maturity that Saturn has been trying to bring out of you here. That does mean this can be like a period where there's a lot of personal stress, a big period of like questioning, because you have to redefine yourself once more. You could even feel pulled between your own needs and the demands of others. But healthily navigated, you will be recommitting to yourself, clarifying your own boundaries, especially to yourself. And you're really going to allow just like the sacred part of you to flourish, the part of you that you truly value to flourish. The Virgo solar eclipse in your 7th house of partnerships, sometimes open enemies. That's a powerful opposition. There could be like a culmination point, a crisis in a key relationship. It's going to force you to see how your relationships are a mirror of your own identity, of your own self-concept. This is going to come under review, and you may have to release, certain ideas about yourself, about relationships themselves. But doing so makes room for new relationship dynamics, though the ones that you want, Either way, this work is going to help you to show up as a more authentic, responsible, self-defined individual in all your connections, especially with yourself.